man in the center of the screen is the second and most likely final, well, definitely going to be the final president during that iteration of Afghanistan, right? It was the Hamid Karzai who got put into place after the Taliban was chased out in early 2002, and then after his, well, reign was over, death is a miserable bitch, you had Ashraf Ghani. So how did he get there? How did he accrue such overwhelming wealth? Because you remember, this dude, after shit fucking started to hit the fan, Kabul hadn't even fallen yet, but this dude was snatching up everything, his multiple automobiles, hopping on a helicopter, just letting stray dollar bills just fly out, because he left with over $160 million in United States taxpayer funds, and you can see the people that are on the screen here. Their big friend with Barry Obama, because he got put in there in 2014, and he was in place of the presidency. He lived in the presidential palace all the way up until, well, yeah, he decided to fly the coop in July of 2021, so he was there for a 7-year stead. Might as well figure out what the fuck led to this. How elite U.S. institutions created Afghanistan's neoliberal president, Ashraf Ghani, who stole $169 million from his country. Before he stole $169 million, let me get this on screen for everybody so we can all read along if you would like. Before he stole $169 million and fled his failed state in disgrace, Afghanistan's puppet president Ashraf Ghani was formed in an elite American university, was given U.S. citizenship, trained in neoliberal economics, no shit, you don't fucking say, by the World Bank, cool. Glorified by the media as an incorruptible technocrat. That really fucking panned out, no didn't it? Coached by the powerful DC think tanks at the Atlantic Council and given awards for his books, Fixing Failed States. Fixing them enough, it's kind of like if you get a gunshot wound and you fix it by putting over a fucking Band-Aid. The oozing has stopped, don't mind the smell in a couple of days, but I fixed it. What are you looking at me for? I could have done nothing. No individual is more emblematic of the corruption, criminality, and moral rot at the heart of the 20-year U.S. occupation of Afghanistan than President Ashraf Ghani, as the Taliban took over his country this August, advancing with the momentum of a bowling ball rolling down a steep hill, seizing many major cities without firing a single bullet. Yeah, it's pretty easy when the barracks are empty, the munitions are still there, but prime for the taking, and you leave the fucking doors and gates open. Legitimately, I make the joke a lot, but that's exactly what fucking happened. That's why they being the Taliban, were able to just overwhelm a force that they were outnumbered by like 3-1. So what the fuck happened? As the Taliban took over the country, the US-backed puppet leader allegedly made his escape with $169 million that he stole. We don't really know. We think that he's in the UAE right now. Yeah, Ghani reportedly crammed his cash into 4 cars and a helicopter before flying to the UAE, which granted him asylum on supposed humanitarian grounds. Why don't they have many more of those fucking refugees that are definitely not getting vetted, not getting tested? But hey, vaccine mandates, right, my guys? President's corruption has been exposed before. It's known, for instance, that Ghani had brokered shady deals with his brother and the United States military-linked private companies, letting them tap into Afghanistan's estimated $1 trillion in mineral reserves. Afghanistan, you know what? Okay, I've got to look into this into the future. How much oil was actually procured in Afghanistan and Iraq during those times? I don't have those numbers offhand, but it is a whole lot less than people really know. But what Afghanistan does have, and it's kind of led to the downfall of the West, vast poppy fields. So they are chiefly responsible. You take a look at the export of poppy and opioid plants, the creation and the maintenance of the opioid crisis over the past, decade and a half at this point. The correlation is directly there. And then there's also a bunch of other very rare earth minerals. That's why China is just lining up to help them out as best they can. But his last-minute exit represented an entirely new level of treachery. Ghani's senior aides and officials promptly turned on him. His defense minister, General Bishmal Mohammadi, wrote on Twitter in disgust, "They tied our hands behind our backs and sold the homeland. Damn the rich man and his gang." Yeah, basically. Indeed, Western governments and their stenographers, corporate media enjoyed the veritable love affair with Ashraf Ghani. He was a poster boy for the exploitation of the neoliberalism, and that had been the Taliban territory. Their very own Afghan Milton Friedman, of course, a faithful disciple of Francis Fukuyama, who proudly blurbed Ghani's book. Of course, Washington was thrilled with Ghani's reign in Afghanistan because it finally found a new way to implement Augusto Pinochet's. Hey, wait a minute. Ghani had significantly fewer helicopters, so let's just stop it right there. But without the PR cost of torturing and massacring droves of dissenters and stadiums. They were all communists. You know what? You can't really hold that against them. Of course, it was the foreign military occupation that replaced Pinochet's death squads, concentration camps, and helicopter assassinations. You know what? You take the good, you take the bad, you take a commie on a helicopter trip and give him a good time for the rest of his life. It's just that miserable sudden stop at the end. But the distance between Ghani and his neo-colonial predecessors helped NATO market Afghanistan as a new model for capitalist democracy, one that could be exported to other parts of the global south. Of course, Ghani clearly spelled out his dogmatic neoliberal worldview in an award-winning book, rather comically titled Fixing Failed States, a 265-page tome. Listen, if this dude's lived as much of a life as he likes to project and he can only get 265 pages out there, I don't know. He's in the word market a staggering 219 times, so he's not exactly that good of a fucking wordsmith, but hey, whatever. It could be impossible to overstate the irony, then, of the state he personally presided over immediately following mere days after the U.S. military withdrawal. Yeah, well, more can be said about that fucking abysmal withdrawal, but all of that couldn't have been possible. The rapid Taliban takeover would not have happened if it wasn't for Ghani's mismanagement. What went unsaid was these same NATO member states and media outlets had for 2 decades lavished praise on Ghani, depicting him as a noble technocrat who was bravely fighting corruption. They had long been the Afghan's president's eager patrons, but threw him under the bus and he outlived his usefulness, finally acknowledging that Ghani was a treacherous crook he had always been. The case is instructive for Ashraf Ghani is a textbook example of neoliberal elites whom the U.S. empire handpicks, cultivates, and installs in power to serve its interests. So, where did he come from? Where did he learn? What did he learn? There at no point at which Ghani ends and the U.S. states begins. Interesting. They are impossible to separate. Ghani is a political product proudly made in the United States of America. Just like Barack Obama, right? Born and raised in Hawaii and learned all of his political comeuppance in Chicago. Very easy to see once you notice it. Ghani was born into a wealthy and influential family in Afghanistan. His father had worked in the country's monarchy and was well connected politically, but Ghani left his homeland for the West as a young man. By the time the U.S. invasion in October of 2001, Jesus, we got to go back that far, right? It was just the 20th anniversary yesterday. Ghani had lived half his life in the United States, where he established a career as an academic and imperial bureaucrat. A U.S. citizen until 2009. Ghani only decided to renounce his citizenship so he could run for president. The U.S. occupied Afghanistan. Well, very convenient. Take a look at Ghani's biography, which is a fun phrase to say, shows that he was gestated in a petri dish of elite U.S. institutions. The U.S. cultivation of Ghani began when he was in high school in Oregon, and he graduated in 1967. Yeah, he's a 70-fucking-year-old man at this point. From there, he went on to study at the American University in Beirut, where the New York Times put it, Ghani enjoyed the Mediterranean beaches, and several of the beaches as well. Went to dances and met his Lebanese-American wife, Rula Ghani. That sounds like a broad who would fucking medal freestyle wrestling. That's a tough fucking name. 1977, Ghani moved back to the United States, where he would spend the next 24 years of his life. He completed a master's degree and PhD at New York's elite Columbia University. His field? Anthropology. Oh, yes, good, cool, great, very fucking relevant. A discipline thoroughly infiltrated by U.S. spy agencies and the Pentagon. Oh my God, he glows in the dark. In the 1980s, Ghani immediately found jobs at top schools. Fucking weird how that works. University of California, Berkeley, and Johns Hopkins. Okay, I'm shocked. He also became a regular fixture on British state media, establishing himself as a leading commentator in BBC's. Once again, I'm shocked. Commentator for the BBC. Intelligence agency linked to Dari and Pashto services. In 1985, the U.S. government gave Ghani his prestigious Fulbright scholarship to study Islamic schools in Pakistan. Okay, after going to a glowy-up university, getting a whole bunch of other fucking Fed placements, he gets to go to study Islam in Pakistan. Okay. By 1991, I was just a wee toddler. Ghani decided to leave the academia and enter the world of international politics, as one does. He was joined in the main institution enforcing neoliberal orthodoxy around the globe, the World Bank. No shit. As political economist Michael Hudson has illustrated, the institution has served as a virtual arm of the U.S. military. Ghani worked at the World Bank for a decade, overseeing the implementation and the devastating structural adjustment programs, austerity measures, and mass privations, primarily in the global south, but also in the former Soviet Union. Aha! Ghani returned to Afghanistan in 2001. He was appointed finance minister. The U.S. created puppet government in Kabul, yes, which he eventually took over, but more on that shortly. The finance minister until 2004, and eventually the president in 2014. That quickly. To 2021, he employed the machinations that had developed the World Bank to impose the Washington Consensus on his homeland. The regime Ghani helped the United States construct was so cartoonishly neoliberal that it established a position at the top called the CEO of Afghanistan. Okay, fair. Okay, you keep throwing around this neoliberal pejorative, which it is, and that's fair, and he was very much in charge of this world-building attempt. It was not successful for a multitude of reasons. It could have been if they would have just went fucking whole hog into it, but they tried to approach it with the whole half-pregnant sort of situation. Kind of, sort of. You know, we're trying. We really want freedom in the Middle East, and the people really want it, but we don't really want to do everything. You know what? We're going to try and help them out, but, it's tough because you guys are so far away. And it's like, just fucking either do it or don't. In the 2000s, the Washington support, Ghani gradually worked his way up the political totem pole. In 2005, he made a technocratic rite of passage and delivered a viral TED Talk. No shit. Just take a look at the list of people that are there. That TEDx seems to be the place where a little bit more reputable people go, but if you get a TED Talk, it's kind of like a blue check mark. There are good people who do have a blue check mark on Twitter, but the overwhelming majority, sketchy people to say the least. Wow, he kind of looks like if you put Bill Gates in a fucking dryer for too long. That's tough. The lecture provided a transparent glimpse into the mind of the World Bank-trained imperial bureaucrat. Ghani echoed the end-of-history argument with his mentor Fukuyama, insisting that capitalism had become the world's unchangeable form of social organization. The question was no longer what system of the country wanted. He argued rather what form of capitalism, what type of democratic participation. Okay, I'm listening. In the talk, Ghani also reflected fondly on his time carrying out Washington's neoliberal shock therapy in the former Soviet Union. That worked so well, right? The Soviets had an easy time taking over Afghanistan. Oh, wait, fuck, history's a bitch. In the 1990s, Russia was ready to become democratic and capitalistic. Yeah, by the 90s, the Berlin Wall had fallen and the Soviet Union had crumbled. So, yes, very much so. I had the privilege of working in Russia for 5 years during that time, according to Ghani. He was so proud of the work he did with the World Bank in Moscow that his official bio on the Afghan government website, he boasted working directly with the adjustment program, the Russian coral industry. In other words, privatizing the Eurasian giant's massive hydrocarbon reserves. Sounds perfect, especially considering Afghanistan sitting on $1 trillion in natural resources. You'd probably want somebody who's well versed in those policies to be running the country. Makes a lot of sense, right? A leading medical journal, Lancet, likewise found that the U.S.-created economic program increased Russian adult male mortality by 12.8%, largely due to the staggering 56.3% male unemployment rate it unleashed. Okay, so we can see where the fucking holes are starting to develop, but just hurry up, move on, right? The ultimate failed state administrator advises elites on fixing failed states. Very cute. In 2006, Ghani leveraged his experience implementing pro-business policies from post-Soviet Russia to various levels of success to his own homeland to co-found a think tank called the Institute for State Effectiveness. ICE? The sissy policy. Markets itself and language that could be lifted from an IMF brochure. The roots of ISE's work are in the World Bank program in the late 1990s, which aimed to improve the country's strategies and program implementation. It focused on building coalitions from reform, implementing large-scale policies and training the next generation of development professionals. The think tank's slogan reads today, a parody of technocratic boilerplate. Citizen-centered approaches to state and market. That means a whole hell of a lot. Legally based in Washington, the Institute for State Effectiveness is funded by the who's who of the think tank financiers, Western government, Britain, Germany, Australia. Oof, okay, they got a lot in common. The Netherlands, Canada, of course, Norway, and Denmark. Elite international financial institutions, World Bank and OECD. It should be ODEC, but whatever. And the Western intelligence-linked billionaire-backed corporate foundations, Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Oh my God, I'm so... Oh, there he is. George Soros, Open Societies Foundations, Paul Singer Foundation, and the Carnegie Corporation in New York. Boy, all of these generations later, and the Rockefellers and the Carnegies still keep popping up. All you just need is just a shout out to the fucking Vanderbilts, and the entire crew would be all back together. Ghani's co-founder was free market enthusiast Claire Lockhart, a former investment banker and fellow World Bank veteran. Boy, they stick together. He went on to serve in the UN ambassador for the NATO-created Afghan government and a member of the board of trustees in the CIA-backed Asia Foundation. Cherry on top of the absurdity came in 2008 when Ghani and Lockhart detailed their technocratic worldview in a book entitled Fixing Failed States. There it is right there, a framework for rebuilding a fractured world. It was so successful, it led to what happened in 2021, obviously. The third blurb in Ghani's book was comprised the vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. Okay, there's another member. Okay, pull up a chair. The fucking hit table's getting a little full, but boys, there's plenty of room for you. Robert Hormats, who insisted the tome provides a brilliantly crafted and extraordinarily valuable analysis. Fixing failed states makes for a maddeningly boring read, and essentially amounts to a 265-page long reiteration of Ghani's thesis. The solution to practically all of the world's problems is capitalist markets. It certain extents, and yes, overall, capitalism is the way to go, and the state exists to manage and protect those markets. That's where we have a problem, my dude. The less government, more gooder. Simple as. In the typical long-winded bromide, Ghani and Lockhart wrote, the establishment of functioning markets has led to the victory of capitalism over its competitors as a model of economic organization by harnessing the creative and entrepreneurial energies of large... Oh, fuck. Wow, that was impressive, and it's not even because I'm recording this late at fucking night. We're just gonna go ahead. Doesn't she look like a fucking Claire or I don't even fucking Lockhart. She just looks like some basic bitch with some just real fucking midwit ideas now, doesn't she? Oh, and of course, yeah, speaking of which, Silicon Valley was smitten as well. Google invited the two to host at its New York office to outline the book's conclusion. You don't fucking say. Silicon Valley has been terrible for a long fucking time. NATO's Atlantic Council cultivates Ghani. Interesting. The powerful Brookings Institute was enamored with him. Writing in the Washington Post in 2012, the liberal interventionist dictator in the think tank's foreign policy research, Michael E. O'Hanlon, lauded Ghani as an economic wizard. No, really? Oh, okay, cool. Oh, this is the Atlantic Council, by the way. When I came to the Atlantic Council, Kempe, that would be CEO of the Atlantic Council, Frederick Kempe, We built an international advisory board of sitting chairmen and CEOs of globally significant companies and cabinet members, former cabinet members of some renown from key countries. And to that point, it wasn't so much I determined to have Afghanistan represented at the International Advisory Board, because all countries in South Asia are, but I was determined to have Ashraf Ghani. Of course, everybody's just waiting to rape and pillage Afghanistan. It's pretty fucking obvious. As part of the Atlantic Council's Strategic Advisor Group, Kempe claimed he and Ghani helped create the Barack Obama administration strategy for Afghanistan. The policy and the plan that Barack Obama carried forward from George W. Bush, who actually predates Ghani being, but okay, cool, right, yeah, because he was the finance minister in 2004 and they already had invaded, but yeah, okay, no, cool, they definitely founded it and it worked fucking great, right? Washington's love affair with a technocrat informer, or reformer rather, sorry, let's just take, hey, look at that, there's Lurch, of course. Why wouldn't he be there? Afghanistan's first post-Taliban leader, Hamid Karzai, had initially showed himself to be a loyal Western puppet. No shit! But by the end of his reign in 2014, however, Karzai had become a harsh critic of the U.S. government. Oh, God! And then he just met a very, very terrible end. That sucks. As the Washington Post put it, an ally who had become an adversary during his 12 years of his presidency. Karzai began to openly criticize U.S. NATO troops for killing tens of thousands of civilians. No, that was Barack Obama with his brand new remote with the joysticks on it. And we can look at the screen and just blast away anybody who threatens our way of life. Yeah, he loved to bomb. He loved to drone strike. Afghans died in a war that's not ours. Yeah, that sucks. Washington and Brussels had a problem. They had invested billions of dollars in a decade in creating a new government and their image in Afghanistan, but they had chosen a marionette who was beginning to bridle at his strings. From the perspective of NATO governments, Ashraf Ghani provided the perfect replacement for Karzai. No shit, you fucking molded him, you created him, sent him to the schools, sent him to the institutions, sent him to the letterbox agencies, so of course he's the perfect fucking replacement. He was a portrait of a loyal technocrat and had only one small downside. Afghans hated him. That's fine. They're just building their own government that they want there. They got the Neolib fucking policy that hasn't stopped a very popular and very legitimately elected Neolibs themselves from achieving a high office in different lands. Yeah, no, definitely. When he got less than 3% of the vote in the 2009 election, he ran as vice president for Ghani had run openly as a candidate to the Washington Consensus. He only had the support of a few elites in Kabul. Where have we heard that before? So when the 2014 presidential race rolled around, Ghani and his Western handlers took a different tact, dressing Ghani in traditional clothes and filling his speeches with nationalist rhetoric. Huh. Quick turn, huh? Very interesting. It's not like we haven't seen that with, out-of-date Neolib stuff, Western side of the world, and then all of a sudden, all of those talking points just seemingly get to be a little bit more identity politics focused. Interesting. Are you starting to see the parallels here, people? The rebranding strategy did help get Ghani into second place, but he was still handily defeated in the first round of the 2014 elections. His rival, Abdullah, the Butcher, garnered 45% to Ghani's 32% with nearly 1 million more votes. Oh, but my popular vote. Abdullah claimed, is that his first name or last name? Claimed that Ghani had stolen the election through widespread fraud. Wow, that must suck to have your Middle Eastern election rigged. Wow, that would be terrible. Why would you allege something like that? I'm sure it was probably the most safe and secure election in Afghanistan history. To settle the dispute, the Obama administration dispatched Secretary of State Lurch to Kabul to broker negotiations between Ghani and Abdullah. He put everybody to sleep. The end. The official Washington lionizes Ghani in the face of fraud and failure. Yeah, buddy. March of 2015, Ghani flew to Washington for his moment of ultimate glory. The new Afghan president delivered a speech to the joint sessions of the U.S. Congress, and he was celebrated as a hero who would unlock the magic of the free market to save Afghanistan once and for all. let's just go ahead and skip right to the end. This is such a dense article. I would be here for hours if we were going to read everything, and it's a fantastic read. Please do, if you have the time and you're interested in this subject matter, click on the link in the description. I'd highly recommend it. The illusion that Ashraf Ghani was a technocratic genius continued right up until the end of his disastrous term. This June 25th, the weeks before the government collapsed, Ghani met with Biden at the White House. The U.S. president reassured his Afghan counterpart of Washington's steadfast support. "Oh, we're going to stick with you, man. Come on. And who else we got? Do you know anybody who you're grooming? I know who I'm grooming. And we're going to do our best to see that you have the tools you need. Like me." A month later, on July 23rd, Biden reiterated to Ghani on a phone call that Washington would continue propping him up, but without thousands of NATO troops protecting his hollow regime, the Taliban rapidly advancing. It came down in a matter of days like a sand castle hit by a wave. No shit. Even the legendary progressive anti-corruption activist Ralph Nader, who's pretty dope, was in denial, referring to Ghani in fond terms as an incorruptible former U.S. citizen. Yeah, well, you can't always be fucking batting 1,000 there, Ralph. Few figures encapsulated the moral and political rot of the 20-year U.S. war in Afghanistan better than Ashraf Ghani. His record would not be taken as an isolated example. It was official Washington, my mistake. It's apparatus of think tanks, the army of sycophantic reporters that made Ghani who he is. Where have we heard that before? This was a fact he himself acknowledged in a June 2020 interview with the Atlantic Council, where Ghani expressed his utmost gratitude to his patrons. "Let me first pay tribute to American people, to American administrations, Congress of United States, and particular American taxpayer for their sacrifice in blood and treasure." No shit. Well, you get what you pay for. Prop up a fraud, you get a fraud, and you die a fucking 1,000 fraud deaths. Hope you're sleeping well at night at the UAE, knowing that you falsely propped up a nation of good people, and you have now left them like absolute fucking dogs, and in some cases, actual fucking dogs there, to be searched out, found, and tortured, and live out their end of days in a much worse situation than you. Hopefully your $169 million covers you well at night, you fucking bag of shit. We got lighter topics for the rest of the day, and yeah, I've been meaning to do this one for a while. Hopefully you found it interesting, because I like to see corruption around the world, and it needs to be exposed whenever you do see it. And we've been talking enough about Trudeau and Biden lately, so I'm going to give them the day off, of course. With that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.